The day had finally come. Commander Kate stood on the landing platform of Nexus Station and watched the sky. The amber clouds moved slowly above her head. Somewhere up there, a ship was coming, a very important ship. She had been waiting for this moment for 3 months. They were coming to visit. Not just any, but Ambassador OK himself. And he was bringing something that no human had ever seen before. He was bringing his children. Kate took a deep breath and looked at her reflection in the polished metal wall beside her. Her uniform was perfect. Every button was in place. Every medal hung straight. She had checked it 5 times already, but she checked it again anyway. Behind her, 20 soldiers stood in a perfect line. They wore their best uniforms. They held their ceremonial rifles at their sides. They did not move. They did not speak. They had practiced this ceremony for 2 weeks, and now they were ready. Lieutenant Commander Hayes stood at the front of the line. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and calm eyes. Kate trusted him completely. If anyone could lead the honor guard today, it was. The radio on Kate's belt crackled to life. A voice spoke through it. "Commander, the transport has entered the atmosphere. They will arrive in 10 minutes. Kate pressed the button and replied, "Understood, we are ready." She walked over to and spoke quietly, 10 minutes. Nodded. His face showed no emotion, but Kate knew he was nervous. Everyone was nervous. They had been allies with humanity for only 2 years. The relationship was still new, still fragile. One mistake today could damage everything they had worked so hard to build. They were a powerful species. They controlled over 200 star systems. Their ships were faster than human ships. Their weapons were stronger. But they had chosen to be friends with humanity instead of enemies. That choice had surprised many people in the galaxy. Kate remembered the first time she had met her. It was at a peace conference on a neutral station. The alien had been nearly 8 feet tall. His skin was covered in silver scales that shimmered when he moved. He had 4 arms, each one ending in a hand with sharp claws. His eyes were golden and seemed to glow in the dim light. She had been afraid at first. They looked like predators. They looked dangerous. But then the alien had spoken to her. His voice was deep and gentle. He had asked her about Earth, about the oceans and the mountains and the forests. He had seemed genuinely curious about humanity and their small blue planet. That conversation had changed everything Kate believed about the. They were not monsters. They were people, just like humans, different on the outside but similar on the inside. Now standing on the platform, Kate hoped that today would go well. The ambassador was bringing his children, his cubs as they called them. No human had ever seen children before. They protected their young with fierce determination. They kept them hidden from outsiders. They did not trust anyone with their children. But Ambassador OK had made a different choice. He wanted his children to meet humans. He wanted them to see what humanity was really like. Kate understood the importance of this decision. It was a sign of trust, a sign that the alliance was growing stronger. The clouds above the platform began to glow. Kate looked up and saw a dark shape descending through the amber sky. The transport was arriving. The ship was beautiful. It was shaped like a curved blade, with smooth lines and no sharp edges. Its surface was the color of midnight blue. Small lights flickered along its sides as it slowly lowered itself toward the platform. Kate straightened her shoulders and walked to the center of the landing area, shouted an order, and the 20 soldiers snapped to attention. Their boots hit the deck at exactly the same moment. The sound echoed across the platform like a single thunderclap. The transport touched down gently. Its engines hummed for a moment, then went quiet. A door on the side of the ship slid open. A ramp extended down to the platform. Kate held her breath. The first figure to emerge was Ambassador OK. He was even larger than Kate remembered. His silver scales gleamed in the light. His 4 arms hung at his sides and his golden eyes swept across the platform, taking in everything. He moved with the grace of a warrior, each step precise and controlled. Behind him came his mate. She was smaller than her husband, but still taller than any human on the platform. Her scales were a lighter shade of silver, almost white. Her eyes were softer than the ambassador's, but Kate could see the same intelligence behind them. And then Kate saw the children. There were 3 of them. They walked between their parents, staying close together. The largest one was a male, nearly as tall as Kate herself. He had darker scales than his parents, almost gray in color. His eyes moved constantly, watching everything around him with intense focus. The middle child was also a male, but smaller. His scales were silver like his father's. He walked with his hands clasped behind his back, trying to look serious and grown up. The smallest was a female. She barely reached Kate's waist. Her scales were pale, almost white like her mother's. Her golden eyes were enormous, taking up half her small face. She looked at the human soldiers with an expression of pure wonder. Kate stepped forward and placed her palm against her chest. This was the traditional greeting. Ambassador OK returned the gesture, his massive hand covering most of his torso. Ambassador OK, Kate said, on behalf of the United Earth Alliance, I welcome you and your family to Nexus Station. We are honored by your presence. The ambassador's translator device turned his rumbling response into clear English. Commander, we thank you for your hospitality. My children have been eager to see your station and meet your people. Kate smiled and looked at the 3 cubs. They were staring at her with obvious curiosity. The smallest one, the female, was standing on her toes, trying to see better. We have prepared quarters for your family, Kate said, and we have planned several activities that we hope your children will enjoy. Spoke for the first time. Her voice was softer than her husband's but carried the same authority. That is very kind, Commander, but first my children have a request. Kate tilted her head. Of course, what do they wish? The smallest cub stepped forward. Her voice was high and clear, like the sound of small bells ringing. We want to see your soldiers. We have heard stories about human warriors. We want to see if the stories are true. Kate glanced at. He gave her a tiny nod. Very well, Kate said to the little cub. The honor guard is right behind me. You may look at them as long as you wish. The small female looked up at her mother, hesitated, then nodded. The cub's face broke into a wide smile, showing rows of tiny sharp teeth. And then, before anyone could stop her, she broke away from her parents and ran toward the line of soldiers. Kate's heart jumped. She saw the other 2 cubs follow their sister. She saw the concern flash across face. She saw soldiers tense slightly as the alien children approached. This was not part of the plan. This was not how the ceremony was supposed to go. But Ambassador OK placed a hand on his mate's arm. Let them explore, he said quietly. This is why we came. Kate watched as the 3 cubs reached the guard line. The smallest one, the female, stopped directly in front of Corporal Sam Briggs. She stared up at him with those enormous golden eyes. And Sam Briggs, trained soldier, veteran of 3 combat missions, stood perfectly still and tried very hard not to blink. Kate realized in that moment that this diplomatic visit was going to be very different from anything she had expected. The little cub stood in front of Corporal Sam Briggs and looked up at him. Her golden eyes were wide with curiosity. Her small head tilted to one side, then to the other. She was studying him like a scientist studying a new specimen. Sam Briggs did not move. He stared straight ahead, just as he had been trained. His hands held his ceremonial rifle in the exact correct position. His feet were planted exactly shoulder-width apart. His breathing was slow and steady. But inside, his heart was beating fast. He had faced enemy soldiers. He had been in firefights. He had seen things that would give most people nightmares. But he had never been inspected by an alien child before. The cub walked in a slow circle around him. Her small clawed feet made soft clicking sounds on the metal deck. She looked at his boots first. then his pants, then his jacket. Her eyes moved up to his face, studying his features with intense concentration. She reached out with one small hand and touched the fabric of his sleeve. She rubbed it between her claws, feeling the texture. She made a small sound, like a cat purring. Kate watched from a few meters away. She had to stop herself from intervening. This was not how diplomatic ceremonies were supposed to work. There were rules. There were protocols. The cubs were supposed to stand with their parents while speeches were made. But Ambassador OK had said to let them explore. And Kate had learned that when made a decision, it was usually wise to respect it. The other two cubs had now reached the guard line. The eldest one, the gray-scaled male, had stopped in front of Sergeant Lisa Palmer. He was nearly as tall as she was. His eyes were narrower than his sister's, more calculating. He looked at Lisa the way a general might look at a soldier. Lisa Palmer was one of the best soldiers on Nexus Station. She had served for 12 years. She had earned 3 medals for bravery. She had a small scar above her left eyebrow from a piece of shrapnel during the Battle of Kirin Prime. The cub noticed the scar immediately. "This one has been wounded in combat," he announced loudly. His voice was deeper than his sister's, almost like an adult's voice. "She carries the marks of battle." Ambassador Ok's scales shifted to a darker shade of silver. Kate had learned that this was a sign of impressed acknowledgement among the. "You observe well," the ambassador said. "It is important to recognize those who have proven themselves in war." The middle cub, the silver-scaled male called, had chosen a different soldier to examine. He stood in front of Private First Class Cole, the youngest soldier in the honor guard. Was only 22 years old. He had joined the military 3 years ago and had worked hard to earn his place on this ceremonial detail. Walked around in a slow circle. His hands were clasped behind his back, and his chin was raised high. He looked exactly like the military commanders Kate had seen in video recordings. The cub stopped and looked down its boots. They were polished so bright that you could see your reflection in them. Had spent 3 hours shining them that morning. "His boots are very clean," declared. "He respects his uniform. He takes pride in his appearance." His eyes flickered for just a moment. Kate saw a tiny hint of pride cross his face before he returned to his stoic expression. The young soldier was pleased that the alien cub had noticed his effort. Meanwhile, the smallest cub had finished her examination of Corporal Briggs. She moved on to the next soldier in line, Private Amy Grant. Amy was a short woman with red hair and freckles. She was one of the finest sharpshooters in the fleet. The little cub stood in front of Amy and stared at her hair. The cub had never seen red hair before. She reached up with one small hand, but stopped just before touching it. "May I?" she asked in her bell-like voice. Amy Grant did not move her head, but her eyes shifted down to look at the small alien. "Yes," she said softly. The cub touched Amy's hair gently. Her golden eyes went even wider. "It is like fire," she whispered, "but it does not burn." Made a soft sound that might have been a laugh. "My daughter is fascinated by colors," she explained to Kate. "Have only silver and gray in our scales. We find other colors very beautiful." Kate nodded. She had not known this about the. It was a small detail, but somehow it made them feel more real to her, more like people she could understand. The inspection continued. The 3 cubs moved down the line of soldiers, stopping at each one to examine them closely. They looked at uniforms and weapons. They studied faces and hands. They touched fabric and metal. They asked questions in voices too quiet for Kate to hear. And the soldiers stood perfectly still through all of it. Kate felt a strange pride growing in her chest. Her people were doing something remarkable. 20 trained warriors, standing motionless while alien children poked and prodded them. Not one of them complained. Not one of them moved. They understood that this moment was important, even if it was not part of the original plan. The eldest cub had made his way to the middle of the line. He stopped in front of Sergeant, a large man with dark skin and kind eyes, had been in the military for 20 years. He had 3 children of his own back on Earth. Studied the sergeant's face for a long moment, then he spoke. "You have seen many battles." It was not a question, it was a statement. Kept his eyes forward, but he replied quietly, "Yes, I have." "You have killed enemies." "Yes." "But you do not enjoy killing." The young tilted his head. "Why do you fight if you do not enjoy it?" It was a simple question, but it carried enormous weight. Kate held her breath, waiting for the answer. Was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke, his deep voice steady and calm. "I fight to protect people, my family, my friends, my home. I do not enjoy taking lives, but I will do it to keep the people I love safe." Considered this answer. His gray scales shifted slightly, showing that he was thinking hard. "Among my people, warriors take pride in their kills. They boast about their victories, but you do not boast." "No," agreed. "I do not. Every life I take is a burden I carry, but I carry it willingly because the alternative is worse." The young nodded slowly. "This is strange to me, but I think I understand." He moved on to the next soldier, but Kate noticed that he glanced back at several times, still thinking about their exchange. The smallest cub, whose name Kate had learned had reached the end of the line. She had examined every single soldier, one by one. Now she turned and walked back to the center of the formation. She stopped in front of Hayes, stood at the head of the honor guard. He was their leader. The cubs had saved him for last, and now the little female was looking up at him with an expression of intense curiosity. "You are the one in charge," she said. "I am," replied. "Why do these soldiers listen to you? Why do they do what you say?" Had prepared many answers for many possible questions, but he had not prepared for this one. He paused for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "They listen to me because they trust me," he said finally. "They know that I will never ask them to do something I would not do myself. They know that I will protect them, even if it costs me my own life." His golden eyes narrowed slightly. "Among my people, the strongest one commands. Others obey because they are afraid to disobey. Is it the same with humans?" "No," said. "It is not the same. Human soldiers follow their leaders out of respect and trust, not fear. A leader who rules through fear will find himself alone when he needs his people most." The little cub was quiet for a long moment. Her brothers had come to stand beside her, listening to this exchange. Ambassador OK and watch from behind, their expressions unreadable. Kate realized that something important was happening. This was not just a child asking curious questions. This was a test. The cubs were evaluating humanity, trying to understand what kind of species they really were. And somehow, the answer to this question would determine the future of the alliance between their peoples. Looked at the line of soldiers behind. She looked at their still faces and steady hands. She looked at the way they held themselves, proud but not arrogant. Then she looked back at Hayes. "I believe you," she said. "I can see the trust in their eyes." And for the first time since the ceremony began, the little cub smiled. Smile changed everything. The tension that had been building on the platform seemed to melt away. Even the air felt lighter somehow. Kate let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. The first part of this strange inspection was over, but she could see that the cubs were not finished yet. They had more questions to ask. The eldest cub stepped forward to stand beside his sister. His gray scales caught the light as he moved. He looked at Hayes with serious eyes. "Our father has told us many things about humans," he said. "He says you are different from other species in the galaxy. He says you form bonds quickly and hold them tightly. Is this true?" Nodded. "It is true. Humans care deeply about one another. We form friendships and families that last our whole lives." "But why?" asked. "What do you gain from these bonds? Do they make you stronger in battle? Do they give you power over others?" It was a practical question asked in a practical way. Kate understood why. They were logical people. They did things for reasons. They expected other species to do the same. Thought about his answer before speaking. Our bonds do make us stronger, but not in the way you might think. When I know that my friends are beside me, I am braver. When I know that my family is waiting for me to come home, I fight harder. Love gives us strength that cannot be measured. The middle cub pushed forward. His silver scales gleamed as he spoke. But love can also make you weak. If you love someone, you can be hurt by losing them. Is this not a danger? Kate saw something flicker in his eyes. Pain, maybe, or memory. She knew that had lost his older brother in the war against the 5 years ago. That loss still haunted him. Yes, said quietly. Love can cause great pain. When we lose someone we love, it hurts more than any wound. But we do not let that stop us from loving. The joy of connection is worth the risk of loss. The three cubs looked at each other. They seemed to be communicating without words, the way siblings sometimes can. Finally, spoke again. Among our people, we love only our own family, our blood relatives. We would die for them without question. But we do not form bonds with strangers. We do not trust those outside our bloodline. She paused, her golden eyes searching his face. But humans are different. You form bonds with anyone, even with people you have just met. How is this possible? Smiled gently. Because we believe that blood is not the only thing that makes a family. Shared experiences can create bonds just as strong. When soldiers fight together, they become brothers and sisters, even if they share no blood. When strangers help each other in times of need, they become friends for life. He gestured at the honor guard behind him. Every soldier standing here would give their life for me, and I would give my life for any of them. Not because we are related by blood, but because we have chosen to be a family. Turned to look at the line of soldiers. She walked slowly down the row, looking at each face. She stopped in front of Private Amy Grant, the red-haired woman she had examined earlier. "Would you die for your commander?" asked. Amy Grant did not hesitate. "Yes." "Why, he is not your father or your brother." "No," Amy agreed. "But he has led me through danger. He has protected me when I could not protect myself. He has earned my loyalty through his actions. That is worth more than blood." Moved to the next soldier, Corporal Briggs. "And you, would you die for these others?" Sam Briggs kept his eyes forward, but his voice was firm. "Without hesitation, they are my squad, my family." The little cub continued down the line, asking the same question to each soldier, and each soldier gave the same answer. Yes, they would die for each other. They would die for their commander. They would die for the person standing next to them. Kate watched this strange ritual unfold. She felt a warmth spreading through her chest. She had always known that her soldiers were loyal, but seeing it demonstrated so clearly, hearing them declare it one by one, made her proud in a way she had never felt before. Ambassador OK had moved closer. His massive form cast a shadow over the cubs as he listened to the soldiers' answers. His golden eyes showed something Kate had not seen before, something like wonder. "Commander," he said softly, "in all my years of diplomatic service, I have visited many species. I have seen warriors who fought with great skill. I have seen leaders who commanded with great authority, but I have never seen anything like this." Kate turned to look at him. "Like what, Ambassador?" "This willingness to sacrifice. This bond that exists between your soldiers, it is not forced, it is not demanded, it is freely given." His scales shifted to a deeper silver. "Among my people, loyalty is expected because of bloodline. A warrior serves his clan because he has no choice. But your soldiers choose to serve. They choose to love. They choose to die for one another." Had come to stand beside her mate. Her pale scales seemed to glow in the amber light. "When you first proposed this alliance, many of our people thought it was a mistake. Humans are young," they said. "Humans are foolish. Humans cannot be trusted." She looked at the soldiers standing in their perfect line, at her children walking among them without fear. I see now that we were wrong. Your people are not foolish. They are brave, not because they do not feel fear, but because they stand firm despite their fear. She placed one of her hands over her heart. This is a kind of strength that my people do not understand, but we would like to learn. Had finished her questioning, she returned to the center of the formation and stood before Hayes once more. Her brothers stood beside her, their young faces serious and thoughtful. "I have one more question," the little cub said. Nodded, ask. "You said that humans fight for love, that they fight to protect the people they care about. But what about strangers? What about people you have never met? Would you fight for them too?" It was the hardest question yet. Kate saw his jaw tighten slightly as he considered his answer. "Yes," he said finally, "we would. Humans believe that every life has value, not just the lives of our friends and family, but the lives of strangers too. When we see someone in danger, we try to help them, even if we do not know them, even if helping them puts us at risk." His eyes went wide. "But that makes no sense. Why would you risk your own life for someone who means nothing to you?" "Because they do mean something," replied. "Every person is someone's child, someone's friend, someone's love. When I save a stranger, I am saving all the people who care about that stranger. I am protecting connections that I cannot see but know exist." He knelt down so that he was at eye level with the little cub. "And because I believe that if I were the one in danger, someone would help me. Humans help each other because we trust that others will do the same. We build a world where kindness is expected, and so kindness becomes common." Stared at him for a long moment. Her golden eyes seemed to look right through him, searching for any sign of deception. But there was none. Hayes was telling the truth, and the little cub could see it. "This is a strange way to live," she said softly, "but I think I like it." She turned to look at her father. Ambassador OK nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. "Now I understand why you wanted us to come here," said. "You wanted us to see what humans are really like, not what others say about them, not what we imagine, but the truth." "Yes," the ambassador replied. "I wanted you to see the truth, and now you have seen it." The little cub looked back at Hayes. She reached out with one small clawed hand and touched his chest, right over his heart. "I can feel it beating," she whispered. "It is strong like a drum." Did not move. He let the alien child feel his heartbeat, understanding that this moment meant something important. "Human hearts are strong," said. "Now I know why your people are so brave." She stepped back and rejoined her brothers. The three cubs stood together, looking at the human soldiers with new eyes. They had come here as curious children. They were leaving as something more. Kate felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. She had witnessed many things in her career, but this moment would stay with her forever. The inspection was over, but nobody seemed ready to move. The soldiers stood in their line. The cubs stood in the center of the formation, and the adults watched, knowing that something profound had just happened. Ambassador OK broke the silence. He stepped forward, his massive form moving with surprising grace. His golden eyes swept across the platform, taking in every detail. When he spoke, his voice was deep and solemn. "Commander, I must tell you something. Something I have not shared with any human before." Kate straightened her shoulders. "I am listening, Ambassador. When the Galactic Council first suggested an alliance with humanity, I was against it." He paused, letting his words sink in. "I stood before the Council and argued that humans were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too emotional." Kate felt a chill run down her spine. She had not known this. She had always believed that they had wanted the alliance from the beginning. "I told the Council that emotions make species weak," the ambassador continued. "That humanity's love and loyalty and compassion were flaws that would eventually destroy them. I said that forming an alliance with such an unstable species would be a mistake." Moved to stand beside her mate. Her pale scales caught the light as she nodded slowly. Many of our people agreed with him. The value logic and strength. We do not understand emotions the way humans do. We saw your compassion as weakness. Kate did not know what to say. She looked at, but his face was carefully blank. He was listening, waiting to see where this conversation was going. Ambassador OK continued. But then I began to study your history. I read about your wars and your heroes. I read about ordinary humans who did extraordinary things, and I began to see something that I had not expected. He walked slowly toward the line of soldiers. His 4 arms hung at his sides, and his golden eyes examined each face as he passed. I read about soldiers who threw themselves on explosive devices to save their friends. I read about civilians who ran into burning buildings to rescue strangers. I read about doctors who worked without sleep to save lives during disasters. I read about parents who gave everything they had so their children could have better lives. He stopped in front of Sergeant, the soldier who had told about fighting to protect the people he loved. I saw a species that seemed to have no concern for their own survival. Humans would sacrifice themselves without hesitation, often for people they had never met. This made no logical sense to me. In the way of thinking, self-preservation is the highest priority. We protect ourselves first, then our families, then our clans. We would never die for a stranger. He turned to face Kate again. But as I studied more, I began to understand. Human sacrifice is not illogical. It is based on a different kind of logic, a logic of connection. Humans believe that they are all part of a larger whole. When one human suffers, all humans suffer. When one human triumphs, all humans share in that triumph. Had been listening to her father's words with intense concentration. Now she spoke up. "Father, is that why you changed your mind about the alliance?" The ambassador smiled. It was a strange expression on his alien face, but somehow it looked natural. "Yes, my daughter. I changed my mind because I realized that humanity's greatest weakness was also their greatest strength. Their emotions do not make them unstable. Their emotions make them powerful in ways that other species cannot understand." He looked at Kate. "I brought my children here today because I wanted them to see this power for themselves. I wanted them to understand why I now believe that the alliance with humanity is the most important decision our species has ever made." Kate felt something loosen in her chest. Relief maybe, or hope. "Ambassador, I do not know what to say." "You do not need to say anything, Commander. Your soldiers have already said everything that matters." He gestured at the honor guard. "Look at them. 20 warriors standing perfectly still, allowing alien children to examine them like specimens. Any other species would have felt insulted. Any other species would have demanded that the children be removed." He shook his head slowly. "But your soldiers understood. They knew that my children were not trying to disrespect them. They knew that we were trying to learn. And so they stood there patiently, answering questions, allowing themselves to be touched and studied. Because that is what humans do. They make space for others. They try to understand before they judge." Stepped forward. Her voice was softer than her mate's but carried just as much weight. "Commander, among my people we have a saying, trust is given to blood, it is never given to strangers." She looked at her 3 cubs, standing among the human soldiers like they belonged there. "But today I have watched my children give their trust to strangers. I have watched them open their hearts to beings they have never met before, and I have watched your soldiers accept that trust with grace and kindness." Her eyes glistened with moisture. "You have given my children a gift that I cannot repay. You have shown them that trust can be earned, that family can be chosen, that love does not have to be limited by blood." Kate's own eyes were wet now. She blinked rapidly, trying to maintain her composure. This was still a formal diplomatic event. She was still the commander of Nexus Station, but she could not deny the emotion building in her chest. The eldest cub stepped forward. His gray scales were darker now, a sign of deep emotion among the. "Commander, may I speak?" Kate nodded, of course. I came here today expecting to see warriors. Strong, cold, emotionless warriors, like the soldiers of other species I have met. I expected to see humans who fought because they were ordered to fight, who obeyed because they feared punishment. He looked at the soldiers standing behind him. But that is not what I found. I found soldiers who fight because they love, who obey because they trust, who would die for each other not because they have to, but because they want to. He placed one hand over his chest, mimicking the gesture his sister had made when touching his heart. I do not fully understand human emotions. I may never understand them completely, but I know now that they are real, and I know that they make humans the most remarkable species I have ever encountered. The middle cub added his voice. When I grow up, I want to lead soldiers like these, soldiers who follow me because they believe in me, not because they fear me. I want to earn trust the way humans earn trust, through my actions, not my bloodline. Ambassador Okay's scales shifted to their silver. Kate had learned that this was a sign of pride among the. He was proud of his sons, proud of the lessons they were learning. But it was who spoke the words that Kate would remember for the rest of her life. The smallest cub walked forward until she was standing directly in front of Kate. She had to crane her neck to look up at the human commander. Her golden eyes were bright and clear. My father told me that humans are unusual. He said that among all the species in the galaxy, only humans possess true compassion. I did not know what that meant before, but I think I understand now. She reached up and took Kate's hand in her small, clawed grip. Compassion means feeling what others feel. It means caring about strangers as if they were family. It means making sacrifices so that others do not have to suffer. Her voice dropped to a whisper. It means being human. Kate knelt down so that she was at eye level with the little cub. She did not care about protocol anymore. She did not care about diplomatic formality. This moment was too important for rules. She said softly, "Being human is not about what species you are. Being human is about how you choose to live. You can have compassion. You can love strangers. You can earn trust through your actions. These things are not limited to our species." The little cub's eyes widened. "Do you really believe that?" "I do," Kate said firmly. "And I think that one day you will prove it. You will show your people that the old ways are not the only ways. You will teach them that trust can be given to strangers and that love does not have to be limited by blood." His grip on Kate's hand tightened. "I will try, Commander, I promise." And in that moment, looking into the golden eyes of an alien child, Kate believed that the future of the galaxy had just changed forever. The formal ceremonies that followed felt almost ordinary after what had happened on the platform. Treaties were read aloud. Signatures were exchanged. Hands and claws were clasped in gestures of friendship and cooperation. But Kate knew that the real work had already been done. The real alliance had been formed in those quiet moments when 3 alien children had examined a line of human soldiers and found them worthy. As the afternoon turned to evening, the delegation was given a tour of Nexus Station. The cubs walked beside their parents, asking endless questions about everything they saw. Why do humans eat 3 times a day? Why do they sleep in soft beds? Why do they hang pictures of their families on the walls of their quarters? Kate answered each question patiently. She found that she enjoyed talking to the cubs. They were curious and intelligent, and their questions made her think about things she had always taken for granted. Was especially interested in the pictures. She stood in front of a photograph of Hayes with his family back on Earth, his mother and father, his younger sister, his nephew who had just turned 5. "These are your blood relatives?" she asked. "Some of them," replied. "My parents and sister are my blood family, but the man standing next to my father is my uncle by marriage. He joined our family when he married my aunt. He has no blood connection to us at all." His brow furrowed. "But you still consider him family?" "Of course. He has been part of our family for 20 years. He was there when I was born. He taught me how to ride a bicycle. He came to my graduation from the military academy, smiled at the memory. Blood does not define family. Love does. The little cub stared at the photograph for a long moment. Her expression was thoughtful, almost sad. Among my people, those who marry into a family are never fully accepted. They are always considered outsiders, even after many years. They can never be trusted the way blood relatives are trusted. That sounds lonely, said. Nodded slowly. It is, but we do not know any other way. She looked up with those enormous golden eyes. Maybe we could learn, maybe we could change. Knelt down beside her. Change is hard. It takes time, but if you believe in something, you should fight for it, even if others think you are wrong, even if the old ways seem easier. The little cub reached out and touched the photograph, tracing the outline of his family with one small claw. I will remember this. I will remember that humans choose their families, and I will try to teach my people to do the same. The tour continued. The cubs explored the dining hall, the training rooms, the observation deck with its view of the stars. They asked about human food and human exercise and human entertainment. They learned how humans told jokes and how humans said goodbye. As the evening grew late, Ambassador OK announced that it was time for the delegation to return to their transport. The children needed rest, and there was a long journey ahead of them. Kate led the group back to the landing platform. The honor guard was still there, standing in their perfect line. They had been given permission to relax hours ago, but they had chosen to stay. They wanted to be there when they departed. Noticed this immediately. She ran ahead of her parents and stopped in front of the soldiers. Her small face was full of wonder. "You stayed," she said. "You did not have to stay, but you stayed anyway." Sergeant was the one who answered. His deep voice was warm and gentle. "Of course we stayed, little one. We wanted to say goodbye." The cub looked at him with confusion. "But why? We are strangers. We only met today." Smiled. "That is true, but today we shared something special. You trusted us and we tried to be worthy of that trust. That means something. That creates a bond." Turned to look at her parents. Ambassador OK nodded slowly, his expression unreadable, had tears glistening in her eyes again. The little cub turned back to the soldiers. She walked down the line, stopping in front of each one, just as she had done during her inspection. But this time, instead of studying them, she spoke to them. To Corporal Sam Briggs, she said, "Thank you for standing so still. I know it was not easy." To Private Amy Grant, she said, "Your hair is beautiful, like fire that does not burn." To Sergeant Lisa Palmer, she said, "Your scar shows that you are brave. I hope you never have to be that brave again." To each soldier, she offered a small word of thanks or appreciation, and each soldier nodded solemnly, accepting her words with grace. When she reached Hayes at the head of the line, she stopped. For a moment, she did not speak. She just looked at him with those golden eyes that seemed to hold the light of distant stars. "Lieutenant Commander," she said finally, "when I am grown, I will be a leader among my people. My father says I have the spirit of a commander. He says I will do great things." Nodded. "I believe that is true. I want to make you a promise." Her voice was formal, almost adult. "When I return to I will tell everyone what I learned here today. I will tell them about human soldiers who stand still out of respect. I will tell them about human leaders who earn trust through their actions. I will tell them about human families that are chosen, not just born." She placed her small clawed hand over her heart. "And I will tell them that humans are not just allies to be tolerated. They are family to be treasured." Felt something catch in his throat. He had seen many things in his years of service. He had received medals and commendations, but nothing had ever meant as much as the words of this small alien child. He knelt down so that he was at her level. "And I make you a promise in return, young commander. When you come back to visit us, my soldiers will be here. They will be just as impressive as they were today, and they will welcome you like family." Smiled, showing her tiny sharp teeth. "I will hold you to that promise, Lieutenant Commander." She turned and walked back to her parents. Her brothers fell in beside her, their young faces serious but content. They had come to Nexus Station as curious children. They were leaving as something more. Ambassador OK bowed deeply to Kate. "Commander, on behalf of the people, I thank you for your hospitality. This visit has exceeded all of my expectations." Kate returned the bow. "Ambassador, the honor has been ours. Your children have taught us as much as we have taught them." Stepped forward and took Kate's hand in hers. Her grip was gentle despite her claws. "Thank you for treating my children with kindness. Thank you for answering their questions honestly. Thank you for showing them that there are many ways to be strong." Kate squeezed the alien woman's hand. "Thank you for trusting us with them. I know that was not easy." The family walked toward their transport. The cubs waved at the soldiers as they climbed the ramp. The soldiers waved back, breaking protocol one final time. The door closed. The engines hummed. The ship lifted slowly off the platform and rose through the amber clouds. Kate and stood side by side, watching it disappear into the sky. The soldiers remained at attention behind them, holding their positions until the last glimmer of the transport faded from view. Finally, Kate turned too. "Well, that was certainly not what I expected from a diplomatic visit." Laughed softly. "No, it was not. But I think we may have just secured the most important alliance humanity has ever made. Because of 3 children. Because those children will grow up. They will become leaders, and they will remember this day." He looked at the soldiers standing behind him. "They will remember that 20 human warriors stood perfectly still while being inspected by alien cubs. They will remember that we treated them with respect and kindness. They will remember that we told them the truth about who we are." Kate nodded slowly. The next generation of leadership, raised believing that humanity is worthy of trust. More than worthy, said it herself, family to be treasured. The soldiers began to break formation, talking quietly among themselves. Kate could see the pride in their faces. They understood that they had been part of something special, something that would echo through history. She walked past the guard line one final time, nodding to each soldier as she passed. "Well done," she said simply, "all of you." And in the years that followed, when historians wrote about the Alliance and how it had transformed the galaxy, they would always mention this day. Not the treaties or the trade agreements, but the moment when 3 alien children had walked among a line of human soldiers and found everything worth believing in. They called it the Day of Trust, the day when the future was changed by the simplest of things, a child's curiosity, a soldier's patience, a promise made between strangers who chose to become family. And whenever Young told the story, she always ended it the same way. "Human hearts are strong," she would say. "I know, I felt one beating." And those who heard her words understood that the strength of humanity was not in their weapons or their ships or their technology. It was in their hearts, in their willingness to love without limits, in their courage to trust without guarantees. In the end, that was what made them human. And that was what made them wonderful.